Good morning and welcome to Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee meeting of February 28. It's a special meeting, so we can start with the roll call.
Committee members: Cornell?
Yes.
Oganessian is absent. Olivares is absent. Sinanian?
Here.
Chair Markarian.
Here.
The agenda for the February 28, 2012 meeting of the CDBG Advisory Committee was posted on Friday, February 24, 2012 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Item 2, action items. 2A, review and approve the proposed revisions to the fiscal year 2012-13 CDBG Social Services and CIP funding recommendations approved by the CDBG Advisory Committee on February 17, 2012 and February 22, 2012.
Is there a special report you would like to give?
As Chairman Markarian, members of the CDBG Advisory Committee, as Ms. Hidalgo just stated, on February 17th, 2012, the CDBG Advisory Committee met to interview city departments and community organizations that submitted fiscal year 2012-2013 CDBG funding proposals for social services, and to deliberate and develop funding recommendations, which the committee did. The amount of funds that were available for social services on that February 17th date was $290,000. Included in the city's proposed funding allocation plan by funding category was $46,000 in program income. That program income was in the funding category of capital improvement projects. However, after the February 17th meeting, staff, Mr. Creel, and I did confirm with HUD that we would be allowed to use 15% of that program income for social services, so it didn't all have to go for capital improvement projects. 15% of that $46,000 in program income amounts to $6,900. As a result, staff is recommending that we go ahead and program that $6,900 towards social service funding. So we would subtract the corresponding $6,900 from the capital improvement funding category, and we are recommending that the capital improvement project to take that $6,900 from be the Palmer Park Improvement Project. So the Palmer Park Improvement Project funding recommendation would be revised from $731,776 to $724,676. Then staff further recommends that $6,900 be allocated to the Students Training as Role Models or STAR program, which is a program sponsored by the Police Department and targets low-income families in southern Glendale and specifically at Pacific Park. And the reason staff is making this recommendation is because it's staff's belief that during the deliberations and in the heat of the battle, if you will, that it was not the committee's intention to defund both police-sponsored programs, but to try to keep intact at least one of the police-sponsored programs. And based on staff's analysis, the program that's operating more effectively currently is the STAR program. So we would like the advisory committee's consideration for using that $6,900 for the STAR program. However, in order to make the STAR program operate effectively and have an adequate funding level to operate effectively and meet their service goals, we are further recommending to redirect an additional $4,084 from the Door of Hope Homeless Women and Children Transitional Housing Program also to the STAR program, which would give a STAR a funding recommendation of $10,984, which still represents a 32% reduction from their current year funding level, but we feel it's a funding amount that is very workable. And the reason we recommended the Door of Hope project is because Door of Hope was one of only two projects that received less than a 0.5% reduction from their current year funding. In addition to that, we began the process of trying to group projects, and we started with all the youth programs and grouping them. And and then determining priorities within the group. And I think the next group that we're going to look at that I don't think we got around to was the homeless programs. We're currently funding 3 homeless programs, and so within that group, I felt it would be prudent to take the $4,000 from that group. And within the 3 homeless programs in that group, I believe that the homeless outreach program by Ascensia and the homeless prevention program by Catholic Charities might have slightly higher priority than the Door of Hope funding. So, Madam Chair and members of the committee, that is the basis for this special follow-up meeting and staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Duran. And as we all remember, it was not an easy day. We spent 10 hours here, and we tried to really go through every applicant and be very fair and understanding of their projects. And we had 22 applicants that we had to really interview and deliberate and make the final recommendation. And our intention was to really be able to fund every organization, but given the amount and the reduction this year, it was almost impossible. So we had to really go through some of these organizations, and based on safety net and criterias, what they're meeting, we had to eliminate a few of the organizations, and it was very, very tough to do. And STAR was one of the programs that I think we felt strongly that it was a wonderful program for our youth, and somehow during deliberation, I don't know how we cut 2 police projects, and after further review, we also noticed that both programs for the police department, both valuable programs were cut, and I'm glad that the staff also did their reviews, and we were also able to receive more funding, even though it's not a lot, but $6,900 was received, and so we were able to kind of put our heads together and see how we can come back and fund one of the STARS program. So I understand that we also have to look at some other organizations, and Door of Hope was one that did not receive any cut this year, and we were funding them almost exactly what we funded last year. But given the situation of 35% cut, it's just fair that we review and revisit that specific project and see how we can just be fair across all organizations. By saying all that, I'll start with my commissioners. Mr. Cornell, would you like to?
I knew when you gestured this way that I
I'll
was
start
selected.
with you.
I didn't even have to raise my hand.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you laid it out beautifully here. I'm quite sure for you, as well as all of us up here, we're in pain. It comes from the heart. We see these programs. We see the achievements, the goals that are met. And, especially the police department, where many of the officers take time off in order to be with the students, and they don't get paid overtime here. Also, it comes from their commitment in serving the community, and not just getting a paycheck, but seeing that the community is served, and the sacrifice they take by taking time off in order to be able to do this. So our hats are off too. It's a painful experience, and it's something that we had to come together with in order to meet, because the reality is there. The funds are just not there. And we have to see that. We did the best we could under the circumstances. And as painful the experience is, and here we are, and I feel as you did in the process, and I think I reiterated this at the start of our deliberation on the funding, that it wasn't going to be easy, and that the bottom line, we would try to be fair and equitable to all concerns. And I think thus far we have achieved that.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell. Mr. Sinanian.
I'm glad that we're able to come back and reconsider the issue of STAR again. I don't know, we should not have cut both police programs. It just wasn't fair, but under the stress of the time and the lack of funds, I guess the decision was made. But, and to be honest, had this almost $7,000 coming from the CIP fund coming back to us, if that hadn't happened, I can't even think of how we could have maneuvered around this issue otherwise. I regret the fact that Door of Hope is, the recommendation is for Door of Hope to lose some funds, but again, I think that was not our intent was not to cut Door of Hope. Our intent was to be as equitable as possible. We eliminated some groups that have been receiving CDBG funds for years, and they have a proven record, but we had to cut them anyway. We cut all the other organizations over 35% or close to 35%, and I think the only one we did not cut that much was the federally mandated one, the one that we couldn't touch. So again, I regret the cut to Door of Hope, but I think it's fair under the circumstances. So I'm for this proposal.
Again, we do want to fund an amount that would be workable with with organizations, and we don't want to give 1,000 or 2,000. I don't think it would be meaningful to them to work with such a small amount. So at that time, either it was to cut some of the organizations or to fund them in a way that they can benefit from the amount. And I'm hoping that today, with the amount that I think is a little over $10,000, we can give STAR enough to continue their program. We know that it's not a whole lot, but at least they would not stop and they would continue with the program, and hopefully next year we'll see what we can do. Yes, I do have a card. Tim Peters, Door of Hope, please.
Well, I'll make this brief. First of all, I want to thank you so much for your wonderful support. I know that your hearts are very much committed to Door of Hope and making a difference in our community, and as we are too. We're in this together, and just speaking with staff, I know that you did your very best with what you had, and I very much support the police, and definitely want to encourage you to do fund them. And so I just wanted to just make a couple of brief comments regarding just the fact that we do feel like we want to support the funding for the police. We would like to possibly suggest, and this is completely up to you, and if you would like to help share the weight of the 4,000, I think the impact on the Door of Hope would be much more significant to us than, say, other organizations. We are a strong organization, but our capacity, I think, is not at a level that some other organizations could. And I think sharing the weight among others, other homeless services, were cut 4% and 7.5%, and so giving Door of Hope a more significant cut. I think sharing the weight, and I'm not going to. I think if it was shared even among, the more you divide 8,000, the recommended 4,084, the more you divide that up, sharing the load has less impact and less pain for the organization. So that would be my only encouragement, to possibly consider sharing the weight of the 4,000 among others. But either way, I do support whatever your decision is, and I thank you for the opportunity to be able to partner with you and if you do choose to cut Door of Hope, that you would at least remember us, and not if there was any available funds that come up as reallocations do take place in the future, that you would remember us. So thank you, and you have a hard job, I know you do, and I support whatever you decide, and that's all I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
Any comment on?
I would like to ask staff. I know it's in front of me, but maybe I can do it quicker. The other two homeless prevention programs, what amount were they funded
Number
at?
13, if you look. I think it was 30,000.
Okay. And what's the other one?
Number 9 would be loaves and fishes.
Oh, okay, that's loaves of fishes.
Yeah.
Okay.
again, I mean, my understanding is some of this organization, based on the number of people that they serve, they're requesting certain dollars. And looking at those numbers, I think that's when we came with the conclusion of what fundings we would approve. And I think both Loaves and Fishes, the charities, Catholic charities, and Homeless Outreach, essentially, I think the volume of their applicants and the number of people that they were serving was a lot higher. Am I correct, Mr. Carrillo?
Yes, that's correct, Madam Chair.
And I think based on that, we decided how much we want to cut. So it wasn't like a 50% or a 30% cut across the board. It was based on the volume and the safety net and the actual program and the value of the program. And I completely agree with Mr. Peters. Their program is wonderful, and they are serving the community, and it is a safety net, and it is a priority for us as well. But it would be difficult for me to, do any further cuts from different organizations. So we have to, if you want to do that, then we have to start revisiting every organization one by one and see. It would be just another long process, and we had our colleagues here, and we went through all that. So we may not be able to do that again. And I think, given the recommendation of 4,000 cuts, that's still less than 35%. Correct? From
32%.
32%. I will stand by just what was recommended. Any?
I'm comfortable with that also, based on staff's recommendation and also their comment that the other two homeless prevention programs are have a higher priority. I'm guessing based on the same criteria, the type of criteria that you listed, such as the amount involved versus the number of clients served. And I'm comfortable with the recommendation made by staff.
But that was your motion?
It's not a motion. I'm just expressing
okay.
my sentiments about it.
I concur, as I said in my opening remarks. It's the best case scenario that we could come up with without having to start the process again. As you remember, on February 17th, we had a 10.5-hour grueling session to go over this here. And I don't think we're in that far again. I think the process, although I don't like to see it for a door of hope, but that organization, from what I see here, was the only one that was untouched. And as much as I concur with Mr. Peters, seeing his organization, see the accomplishments, see the goals, there's no sacred cows among us here. That there's a pass for any organizations, and not to single out Door of Hope, of course. But this is the reality. This is what we're faced with, and I think it's fair and equitable in the process. The Door of Hope hasn't been the only one that's been touched thus far. That it's a necessity in order to do this, to be fair and equitable all the way around, as we have in the other organizations, in order to be able to allocate these funds for the PAL program. So I do concur with Mr. Sin and his remarks.
The STAR program, right?
Yeah, STAR.
I have a quick question, and then I'll move. I want to ask Officer Aguila if $11,000 will keep them afloat, if that's going to be enough to... That's the bare minimum that'll keep them afloat.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I did the math when I got back the number of 10,984. This is basically what it means to us, that our community services coordinator would have to cut down from her usual 20 hours a week to 10 hours a week. And that in turn means for the program that we'd have to curve back half an hour. We'd have to cut down, we'd have to actually delete the entire snack time. and we'd also have an early drop-off time. So it's 30 less minutes every Tuesday, but that adds up. And also the 10 hours, she'd basically just have to crunch everything together and use those 30 minutes that we leave early to do permission slips, to make phone calls, to look at applications. So that does mean a little bit more work for me as the lead officer. It's something that I'm willing to do now, but I also just want to advise you and to put in your minds for next year that it is a little bit more work for the lead officer, and if it weren't for the current unit that I'm in, I don't see how the unit would be successfully run if this continues for next year, because it does involve a lot more time from the police department. A greater partnership with parks would be able to make this program more successful. So that's just something to consider for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corporal.
So I'll make a motion to that the Community Block Grant Advisory Committee approve the following revisions to the 2012-2013 CDBG funding recommendations approved by us on February 17, February 22nd, 2012. And if I can have Ms. Hidalgo read in those 3 revisions, or I can read them in. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Correa.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to make a comment, too, and I think Mr. Peters alluded to this as far as any funds that come back. I know I mentioned that last week as far as capital, but is there any recommendation as far as if any funds come back, you'll revisit the entire organizations, or is it Door of Hope to see where?
If any funds come back, I would recommend that we revisit Door of Hope and the STAR program.
STAR,
Both, okay.
exactly.
And see how we can.
Or revisit, do we have to revisit, or can we just say split it between the two? I guess it depends on how much money is coming back.
Correct, yes. I think we'll just, so let staff know that as we anticipate any funds coming back, that we'll let that advisory committee know about it, and then we can schedule if there needs to be another
And again,
meeting.
do we want to reprogram it for this year? I mean, 12, 13? That's what.
12, 13, correct.
Right, okay. All right, so we're going to try our best, and usually that happens, so we'll see. If any funds come back, it would be just for these 2 organizations.
So with that caveat, should we read in the 3 revisions?
Sure. The 3 revisions are Palmer Park Improvement Project would be funded. The change would be from $731,776 to $724,876. Homeless Women and Children Transitional Housing Program, Door of Hope, from $19,000 to $14,916. Students Training as Role Models, STAR, Glendale Police Department, from $0 to $10,984.
Thank you, Iris.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
Great. Thank you.
Committee members Cornell?
Yes.
Oganessian is absent. Olivares is absent. Sinanian?
Yes.
Chair Markarian?
Yes.
Item 3 is other business.
Any other? Okay. Item 4.
Item 4, public communications. I don't have any cards. Item 5, adjournment.
Okay. Thank you. We're adjourned.